Welcome back to the Daily Edge. I'm here with my brothers, TJ and Todd, and today is going to be a lot of fun. Typical to our running and adventures, we are going to do a full recap for Prairie on Fire. Wow, what an event. My first event, I've shown up a couple of times. My first time running, an incredible turnout. I've heard nothing but awesome things, but today we're going to dive into it. We're going to talk about everything that happened, and I'm excited.
T, why don't we start with you? So I know there's an unbelievable amount of effort that goes into creating the experience for this race. Overall, coming out of it, how do you feel about how it went? Obviously, nothing ever goes perfect, but maybe talk us a little through the nights leading up to it. And then maybe just overarchingly how you felt the experience was, for the standard and expectation you set. And then we'll dive into the details.
Yeah, so a little bit of behind the scenes, which we don't typically like to give out prior to the race because we have surprises, things we want to kind of bring forward for people. Prairie has gotten to be quite the task, looking at it objectively without having any knowledge. It would look like something fairly easy to set up because a lot of these races that are point to point, more like the full mo, you're having to set signs up along the route to make sure people know where they're going. So you're marking routes. You have 8 stations in different areas. You have a start line you have to set up and a finish line you have to set up. Prairie's all condensed into one place. But that said, you're also there for potentially 3 days. This year we were there from I start normally course checking about a week in advance. So I'll go out to see what the course conditions are like, make sure there's not too much water. We do, and this is something that has come up in other conversations, we do have an alternate course if it does get too rainy, but I'm always out there checking that. This year, I went out on Thursday. Race begins Saturday morning and began marking the course. It's touch and go because the course has to be marked on the ground because it's also shared with horses. And so what we've found is the most effective for that is paint. Well, if it rains or if the course is too heavily traversed leading up over those next 2 days, that paint could get wiped away. And as much as you would think it isn't necessary for runners because it is a loop they run a lot, it is that first couple of times out because people can get a little bit confused. So we get out there Thursday. We're doing that. One of the other big things we do is we stake out the canopy locations. We are getting to a point with Prairie on Fire where we have so many people that are attending that we have to measure out and stake out canopy locations because in the past what we've done is we've allowed people to just kind of pick their favorite spot. Unfortunately, if we did that, people just aren't naturally meticulous enough to utilize that space in a way that's optimal for us to fit everybody in there. So most of the day Thursday was spent marking the course and getting that ready. And then we get out there first thing Friday morning. So some fun things happened this year that I guess we can reveal. One of our fantastic sponsors, Mount to Coast, we had a miscommunication leading up to this race. Mount to Coast has been our presenting sponsor for the last 2 years of Prairie on Fire and for a full mo. And they thought the race was in October. So that meant that we placed the shirt order like 9 days before the event. Luckily, my wife, Tara, 317 Presco, does that for a living. So, but she's more of a boutique style operation. So we spent the week prior getting shirts ready and getting prints ready. This year, as you guys saw, we went a little bit different and we did boxes for your packets instead of your traditional drawstring bags or traditional just bag in general. So we had boxes that we had designed and printed. So there's a lot of box folding. So a lot of packet stuffing stuff going on, but there was a major scramble getting the coins that we ended up giving out, we'll talk about those later, laser engraved and making sure those were there. And then it's just your typical scramble to make sure you have everything. We light the course at night. We light the out and back. That's a 4-hour process to put those LED lights in. What was luckily, Ricardo was in charge this year from lighting the course. So he did all of the stuff you saw from a tiki torch perspective, from an LED light perspective with Rob D, Christy's husband, who has helped out with a lot of our races. So, it was a ton, but, come I think Friday or Thursday, we brought the 700-pound smoker out. John brought his smoker out, which was quite treacherous bringing that thing up from Irvington. We got that there, but we had to be ready to go by 6:00 Friday night. That's when we started the pizza. Another kind of fun behind the scenes thing to talk about with the pizza. We had planned on doing pizza when John transitioned over to King Dough months and months and months ago. And then the reality quickly hit us that we had ordered 47 pizzas from King Dough on their busiest night of the week. And that just wasn't going to work. So we got a portable pizza oven out there. John was cooking that on site. But we had all that up and ready to go. People started showing up Friday night at 6:00, started putting canopies up. And then, we got a couple hours of sleep, I think 3 hours of sleep. And then we woke up at probably 4 a.m. and the show hit the road. And then we began rolling for Prairie.
So let's talk about the food for a second. You just hit on that. John, year over year, has done an insane job on the food, and the idea that any of it is complimentary to me is a little bit wild. Because so you had pizzas Friday night,
and not only pizzas, but you go somewhere to get pizza, it's been sitting in a box for an hour. These were cooked on site, these were crispy hot,
so good. And then Saturday morning, I believe there was a breakfast provided.
Bacon, sausage, pancakes, coffee.
And then, was it dinner next?
Well, no, we did, because last year
there was burgers and dogs?
Yeah, last year we saw that a lot of the crews and family members were having to leave to go get food in the middle of the day. Yeah. So this year, and man, they were hungry. We got quite a bit of food, and I think we burned through all of it in 2 hours. But hot dogs, hamburgers, chips, things like that. John and then Teresa came later on and helped. And all the while, he's cooking 60 pounds worth of pork in the smoker. But up and until, and that was dinner.
That was Saturday night's dinner, which the pork was insane.
Off the charts.
It all smelled amazing, by the way.
Not eaten by a lot of runners, obviously, just because of the heaviness of it. But there was pork, and then there were sides too. It wasn't just trying to think of what all was there. There was salad. I think maybe a Caesar salad, maybe carrots.
There was a ton of stuff. John and I haven't downloaded on it yet. It was very stressful for him because there were a lot of things we were scrambling with last minute, to get the point of sale online for the on-site merch that Tara was doing and John. It was a lot of scrambling, things we weren't necessarily used to that we'll have dialed in a little bit better next time.
I think what was really cool about it, just a shout out to John Faust for unbelievable job there. But I think what was really cool about that is you guys have expanded your focus from the runners to all the people that were there with the runners, which obviously, again, need food and the shuttles and things. So to be able to provide that on site, I thought was a really nice touch.
You asked earlier about kind of how we felt about the overall runner experience, and I think fairly good. We're glad that we added some of the last minute things we did. I did not talk about it, but Corey had some flight issues getting in here, and Corey normally comes on Monday or Tuesday, and Corey got here Friday morning, Friday morning at 5. No. Yeah, I think so. Friday morning at 5 a.m. I had to pick him up from the airport, right before we had to stay up for 2 days. But having him come in and help with the logistics like he does, and it's his vision a lot, and the way things are structured at the finish line. So getting that done and in, that helps a lot. But when it comes to the runner experiences, one of the things that we want to work on is being able to accommodate not only more runners, and I think we've talked about that being slightly more, but not too many more, but also more spectators. Come 3:00 on Saturday, there was no parking left at all. And, thank God again for Angie and Ricardo and Wendy and everybody that was shuttling runners from the runners parking lot, which is a couple miles away. That helped us accommodate more, but we're going to have to accommodate even more than that. And so, those are some of the things we'll continue to work on. Angie Frazier, having her there, she's run it almost every year. She didn't run it this year. So, having her there full time for the day leading up to, and then it was a blessing in disguise because she was everywhere.
I may regret this because we're going to forget some people, I'm sure, but as we continue to talk about the experience, just your comments there about that takes an unbelievable village. You mentioned Ricardo, Rob D, Angie. And this is set up. This is throughout. You mentioned Tara was there actually, not only
Crystal
pressing
was helping
before.
Tara.
Crystal was helping. Jenna helped a little bit. You had,
Kids.
You had Eden and Kennedy doing the awards. You had Dakota, who ran and then showed up the next morning and stayed there all day on Sunday. You were running the data, which people are really loving the BI, like being able to see the scoreboard. And of course, we've talked back and forth of some of the things that we will change next year to eliminate some of the confusion. But like that was...
You need to get that online. I think people want to be able to see that aren't there.
It was.
It was.
Mm-hmm. Really?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, people were tuning in from
But
everywhere.
when he left, and then Scotty left, Scotty helped out a ton too. Scotty Banks.
Scotty did a ton.
Nobody knew how to update the online side of it, so we just had it updating locally. Jacob Rich showed up. Chambers was out there.
Yep.
Like there were probably 20 people that at some point in time lent a hand. And of course, as this race continues to manifest and grow, we're going to have to stay up for more days, and there are going to have to be more people that make it work. But everybody stepped up this year.
I know Christy, I don't know that we mentioned her name, but she ran it this year, and she does a ton of stuff leading up to it, big on organizing.
And well, then of course, John Kuhn. Right?
Oh yeah.
John
Cool. Yeah,
and
of course.
Tyler and Colin.
Yeah.
John is making the film for this year. He was also doing our social media. Tyler was working with him, capturing footage early in the morning. And then Colin Howard and, of course, Eric Farney, all the drone footage you guys saw on social media, most of that's him.
These guys were everywhere. It was like you'd be running and there'd be like a dude in a bush, or like, they had some shots where you turn a corner and you wouldn't see him until you're like right on top of them. They're everywhere.
So to your point, it's like, oh, this is race. This will be simple. There's just kind of one home base, and then, they're kind of out and back to that same point, and everyone kind of has their own tents or whatever. There's 20 people that probably collectively put in 500 hours, in just during the race itself. I mean, people were there for 20, 30 hours. Some of the ones doing, obviously the race going 38. But anyways, I wanted to touch on that for a second, before diving back into the details.
I think it went really well this year. I think we have some things we can work on. I think we have some other additions we want to make to the experience. But all of those people made a huge impact. And it's tough too, because a lot of people ask, what can I do to volunteer? And what can I do to help? And I think just show up and just stay there for as long as you can. There will be things that pop up, especially if you have knowledge about, as it relates to running and dealing with things. That's why it was so good to have Angie there, because we'll talk about them later, but there were some people that ran into very specific types of injuries or types of situations that they didn't know how to deal with. And she was, there to give suggestions on, okay, this is happening. What should I do? I have a blister. Should I pop it or not? And so these types, and once you do, all right, how do you dress it and how do you approach those types of things? And next year we're going to have some other people there that also have that similar knowledge. But
you had the physical therapy guy there too.
We did have both. Yes. So shout out to Mike and Tyler, both phenomenal. It was huge to have them there. And we're working on improving that experience, because Mike showed up at 8 and was there between 8 and noon. Well, nobody really needed him then. But we will have it set up next year where we can.
Let's go back to the kind of pre-race. Mm-hmm. You guys have, the runner experience is so important to you. Most places will, you'll get a bib and they'll throw it in a bag, and there will be like 30 advertisements in there that you generally throw away. You guys have been very intentional about that. A couple of things that come to mind immediately are you guys spent, I know, a decent amount of money on these boxes. Very kind of innovative, unique approach. And then, if I don't remember, you wrote everyone a letter. Mm-hmm. Talk about the time and energy and the resources that go into some of these like really fine touches and why that's so important to you, because very few races do it.
Well, I've talked about, that's my passion, is providing these platforms for people to do these types of things. And I want to make sure that we do what we can to let them know that we are putting our best foot forward in every sense of that word, and that we want, you never know what's going to push somebody to that next level. And we'll talk about that as we talk about the race and getting pulled through and things like that. And so getting to that start line, I want you to know that this wasn't a company who's trying to make money, meaning we're not this big organization that bought or sponsored a particular marathon to make hundreds of thousands of dollars. That's not our main focus. Our main focus is, wow, they really, TJ spent, I thought about that letter for a week, and what things I wanted to make sure we touched on. And, make sure that when you're going in, you're aware of this bigger picture, because I give a lot of props to people who have a lot of time to think about very specific topics. And I think about this a lot. So I want you to know, like, look, there are all these elements to this. Keep all of these elements in mind when you get on that start line. Like, this is what this could mean to someone in your family or somebody watching from afar. Keep that in mind, as well as challenging yourself. And this is going to get hard. And then, here is a shirt, not with the same design on it every year, with just a different year, but like a little bit of a different design for the shirt. And here's the rad Dana. Like, this is something you can actually use effectively during the race itself, not something that you can wear 6 months from now. So those other little things, here's a box that if you want to take everything that you get from the race, because you're going to get things during the race on top of the award, and take them home and set them in there and kind of create a little thing for it. Like, that's what that's for. So, that was why we did that. And we want to make sure that everybody knows that we're coming here with all guns blazing on our side. If you're going to lay it out there like that, like we saw some people do, best believe we're going to do the same thing.
So while we're talking about that, and then I think this will dive us into the race a little bit, let's talk about the coins. So the coins is another thing that was really cool. And why don't you share where that...
Yeah, so, when it really hit me, so Brittany Cother and Matt Cantrell have run Grind on the Grid, which is the other backyard ultra in Indiana. We actually both kind of came up with these concepts in similar time frames. Theirs actually happened first. I think they did theirs in April, and we did ours in October of the same year. And theirs is out in Vetersburg. I think it's out west in Indiana, excuse me. And I went out this last year to watch it. They're good friends. They're awesome people, super knowledgeable in the ultra world. Brittany was with Chaos Crewing, who I didn't call out. We actually did that crew in A with her and with Jessica Nowak and that team, where we covered a lot of things that people may encounter in the race. But anyways, they gave out wristbands at certain distances. And I'm like, well, that's really cool. That's a good idea. And I was just looking for another way to commemorate that, because we try to do things that are a little outside the box. Like, we were one of the first, the awards we have, there's a bigger story behind that, but we engrave them on site. So we try to do things a little differently. But I'm like, for certain people, you talk about things that motivate them. There is some extrinsic motivation, especially for kids. And we can talk about K when the time comes, but like, those coins are something that's like, oh, wow, I have something to focus on. And we have some ideas for next year around those to, again, help people connect the dots, because you do hear about times in the broader scope of this race where there is no goal until you get to this, like, normally it's like goal, 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 goal. And then there comes a point where it's goal, and trying to help people break that up. So that was behind the coins, but that's where that idea came from.
So there's a handful of individual stories here, but first I want to talk about the broader collective performance at this. I was blown away. Of course, I was sitting there refreshing the data and watching the charts and guessing at, we were a lot of hypotheses. Oh, how long will people last? We had gone 16 miles and I think had lost one person out of 160, somewhere between 150, 175 people, 160 some people. We had lost one person through, at the completion of 4 yards. Then as we went further, I want to say, well, this goes directly back to the coins, right? So you had ordered 100 coins, I think maybe of each.
200 of the first one, and then 100 of the second.
What was the first one?
That was the ultra marathon, 50K.
50K. So that was 31 miles. That was
seven. It was 7 yards. 29 miles, whatever. Yeah.
So we had, and obviously with only 160 runners, we have plenty. You had 100 coins. And so again, 160 runners, we'll call it.
Yeah, 152 started. I think you guys narrowed it down to, but something like that.
You're right. Yeah. And going into, so the second one was
50 miles.
50 miles.
50 miles, making it to the night, right?
Yeah, you had to run the 12th. It was into the dark.
Into the dark. So you had to finish your 12th yard, and we almost ran out of 100 coins.
Yeah.
So
I didn't see that coming.
2/3 of the entire field ran 50 miles. Like, that is incredible. Like, just as a holistic performance. Like, comments on that,
well,
thoughts
the,
on
the,
that.
the comments on it is, after the fact, one of the things we do, we are part of the backyard ultra community at a large scale, right? So there's a bracket and there's the world championships are actually coming up soon down at Lass's place. But anyways, they track all of the backyard ultras and all the statistics for the backyards. Last year, as is documented in the film, we had 11 people break 100 miles. Typically, on average, about 7% of a backyard ultra field will make it 100 miles. We had right around there last year. We had 120 or so start, and so right around 8-9% last year. This year we had 16%. At 24 people breaking 100 miles. Which was pretty ridiculous. So our starting field this year put us as the third largest ever, and having double and then some. The amount of 100-mile finishers is pretty spectacular.
What's funny is we had a couple people come in and it was awesome, and to some people it was a little demoralizing because to be above average, you had to run over 100K. We didn't get to half of the field out until 100K, right? Which is 3 yards past 50, so 15 yards in. And so to think about that, I had one girl come up and kind of say, I really wanted to be, at a certain threshold. I think she was maybe trying to be in the top 25%. But that insane to have over half of the people make it 100K, 62.5 miles just speaks to the quality of the field that are coming out and the camaraderie and the community. I just thought it was spectacular. Any other kind of comments overall on the milestones that were, well, let's just talk about the race in general. Went how many yards last year?
29.
And this year?
38.
38. So it's also psychologically, as other people see other people doing this, there's a level of inspiration that it inspires and new heights that it set, right? 11 people broke 100 last year, now 24. I think it becomes more of a possibility. It's like the 4-minute mile, right? Someone does it, then it's like, oh, I can do that, right? Someone that you can relate to potentially accomplishes that feat. And then all of a sudden, you mentioned the goal, that becomes the goal, and 24 people do it, and then you go 9 more yards.
We are seeing these people, it's happening in real time. One that comes to mind, I'll just tell this quick individual story before we get back into it, but you talk about that larger thing. No woman had ever broken 100 miles in this race, and we had 4 do it this year, right, with Sarah, Angela, Tammy, and Gracie. And Kristen Howard's a good friend of mine. She ran the full Mo this past year. That was the farthest she'd ever run, 50K. She ran I can't remember, either 100K or 66 this year. And I saw her a couple weeks after Prairie, and she's like, I think I'm going for the 100.
Yeah.
Right? And you see those ladies do it. And you want to talk, that's a jump from a marathon to 100 miles in 18 months. But seeing other people do it. And I think we're going to see.
Those 4 females are going to inspire so many.
Man.
It's going to be wild to see that. So let's get into the individual stories. We'll start with you. You ran 100K. Go for it. Talk us through it.
Well, I'll probably sprinkle stories in throughout. I think chronologically makes a ton of sense. So I'll just kind of jumping out. I probably said this. I don't know if I said it on the podcast yet, but I had not trained. I don't know what the training regiment's like for something like this.
Probably not a mile a day.
Yeah. So coming up to the full Mo, I was all in 50, 60 mile weeks, fully trained, 12-week program, performed very well to my standards. Really enjoyed that. Summers are hard for me. My commitment to putting in a ton of miles and what that even looked like just didn't happen. I just didn't have a full-on training plan. But the one thing I do have, I think, is grit, and I'm going to go until I can't go anymore. And so I showed up that day realizing, and just talking to you guys, we did the pre-podcast and stuff. I figured, one of the things that was going to take me out was either going to be chafing, food, or fatigue, obviously, or injury. Those are probably the big 4 for everybody out there. So I went out. It was a perfect day. We haven't talked about that yet, but God could not have given us a better day. It started out and it was 60 in the morning, peaked at 74, and then maybe 55 at night. It was and it was one of those things where blue skies, but even during the peak of the day, you got a little bit of cloud cover. And then when you went out for the night loop, you were like running and watching the sunset, and then you turn around and there was a full stinking moon. I mean, it was like every feature that God could put out on for us that night was there. So the weather was just phenomenal. And I set out with an interesting goal. I said, I'm going to talk to a new person every loop that I don't know. And so I went out my first loop, and gosh, it's funny. I wrote the names down at the time because I wanted to remember, but I met a guy from Alabama that was part of the tribal team on my first loop. And so to me, it was like, I want to meet new people. I want to learn about what's going on in other people's lives and just try to, kind of get the train going. And I felt I didn't have really hardly any issues in the first 6 yards. It was fun. I got to talk to people that I didn't know. I got to hear their stories. A lot of good conversation, a lot of good encouragement. Didn't really have the headphones on, really just kind of enjoying the journey for the first 6 yards or so. And I think that, played out for most people. You said we had one person drop. So it was a really, really good experience. And you kind of just keep running that loop, and the first couple miles I think the cycle for me is, it was once I got to 2.5 miles, and it was kind of it kind of cycled in. It was that trying to get all the way out. And then once I made the turn to come back, there's a little bit of psychological damage that I was playing in my brain. I wanted to be done at 48 to 50 minutes every time. I wanted that buffer. And so I was always, especially when we got to the night loop, the out and back, I had to be at a certain point at a certain time. And so I'd always try to push myself. It was fun to see how everyone else had different strategies. The girls, they clearly had a strategy. And, sometimes you're in front or behind, but they were running this point, and they were walking this point. I don't know how their strategy or what it was, but they all kind of did the same thing and stuck together. It was incredible. Cam, got to spend some time with him, and he was running a lot slower. That was kind of his strategy. So people were coming in at 56 to 58 minutes, and people were coming in at, 38 minutes, right? There was people that were really fast. So it was interesting to see how everyone kind of approached it. I probably got around 7 or 8 yards. I got my first kind of kick in the teeth. My legs were just I'm done. I don't want to go anymore. You're 28 to 32 miles in, right? And I haven't been running more than, 20 miles a week, I think, at best. So I'm that far in, and my legs are you're done. And I run another lap, and they're like, no, you're done. And then I remember you came by, and I'm like, dude, my legs are just freaking trash. And you're like, well, here's the deal. It's not going to get any worse. And there was something when you said that it was oh, that's right. And so at some point, I don't know when it was, I just mentally kept going. And at some point, your body normalizes to that pain.
Yeah. And
it actually took it from an 8 to a 4, right? It wasn't my legs hurt, but it's I mentally was yeah, they're going to hurt. This is what they should feel like. And I'm going to keep going. One of the key things I did for me that was Angel made actual food for me. I don't do well eating Crustables and, pretzels and all those things. So I actually had 2 full meals, rice with a taco thing on it, and then I had a chicken curry. And so I would go back and forth, and I would almost eat. There's a few times I went out there with a full stomach, just making sure I stayed on my food and I had good food in my body. So that was helpful. I went through 5 pairs of shorts and more lube all over. I mean, anyone in our tent got more than what they would ever want to see from me putting on stuff, trying to keep that area dry. Because as you guys know, chafing happens when you stop sweating and it dries out, and then you sweat again. That's when it hits if you don't change or clean. So a lot of Hey Dude wipes and a lot of different things to try to maintain that. But I was in a pretty good place through so I get through 7 or 8. And I'm feeling decent again. And then my daughter shows up. And so Eden was there. She was helping out, doing a bunch of different things. But Hadley had a soccer game and couldn't come. So she gets there about 4 o'clock. And she's also running a mile every day. Shout out to Hadley. She'll be at 100 days on September 30th.
Let's go.
So she's fighting through knee pains and other things, but she's still doing it every day, which is, I'm really, really proud of her for sticking with it. And she does a mile on top of whether she has a sport or not. She just shows up, which is really cool. So she shows up and she's like, Dad, can I run a loop? I'm like, sure. So she grabs her sister's shoes because she didn't have any. And she put on a pair of my shorts. She runs a loop. And so that was kind of like helping me change the pace. And then she gets back and we run a couple more loops. And I'm like, I'm feeling it a little bit, but I'm still kind of in my groove. And she's like, can I run another one? I'm like, yeah, you can run another one. And about this time, I think it was maybe lap 10 when I locked on with Kay for a couple laps. Kay was in a tough spot, and I was like, let's just run the next two together. I think TJ fueled the fire of like, go out and beat Uncle Trent. He said his goal is to beat you. So Kay had this little vendetta. Anytime she saw me, she'd like take off sprinting, which what she did was just phenomenal. She was just incredible. The grit and just her mentality, like, it was just unbelievable. She doesn't, I have a lot of kids, and at some point in time, how you have a kid and they get mad or upset and they start whining and they get cry and fussy. Like, this just doesn't happen with Kay. Anyway, so me and Kay lock in until we get to, I think, the night loop.
Yeah.
So Hadley does 8 miles with me, and I had not really set a goal. Everyone's like, what's your goal? I'm like, I didn't set a goal, but I'm like, I saw the shirts and I was like, the last one was Into the Dark. I'm like, I want an Into the Dark shirt. So I was finding ways to get into the dark. And so that was lap 13.
Yeah.
And so I get back from 12 and I'm chafed pretty good. And I'm like, all right, and Hadley said, Dad, I'll go back out with you. Now, mind you, my daughter only runs a mile. This is going to be her 12th.
She's about to run a half marathon.
Yeah. And she's like, I got you. And then Chambers, Caleb was right there, and he goes, and so I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to do that 13, that last loop, and I'm done into the night. Chambers looks at me, he goes, dude, when you get back, I'm going out on the next one. And so come to find out, those two had been talking of like, how are they going to keep me going? And so Hadley goes out on 13, and there's points in times where I think she was really struggling, but she caught back up to us. Because I had to and me and Kay kind of parted because I was just trying to hold on for dear life myself. And so I think Noah came out, maybe was running with Kay, but Kay's still going at 13, which is incredible. I get back and I'm like toast. And Caleb's like, let's go. And community, I didn't read your letter until after the race. And it was so spot on with everything I experienced. Like as you went through and just painted that picture, I'm reading it, I'm like, wow, this is like literally what when I was done, when everything that I had put out there was done, my community said, no, there's more.
Because at 54, she goes out, and then she goes out, maybe it was 50 to 54, 13th loop. And then you go out 54 to 58. But then you were going to stop there just short of 100K.
Yeah, so
you were like, I'm done.
Yeah, so Hadley ended up going out again. She went out for 4 more with me and Caleb. So she went out for 16. And she's like, Dad, I got you. I'm just like, I can't quit. My daughter's here. Caleb's here. And like my community was like, Dad, go. And I'm like, I'm in no man's land at this point in time. My stomach's starting to lock up. I'm super tired. I can barely pick my legs up. I haven't been training for this. And I get done with lap 14 and you walked by and said, there's no way you're stopping 1 lap short of 100K. Dude,
you'd never
you will never, you cannot stop. And so then I got in my mind, I was like, okay, Caleb's like, I'll go back out. And so Caleb went back out with me and I was teeter-tottering, like vomiting, like from my stomach was kind of messed up. And so I said, Caleb, I was like, we're going to go as hard as we can in case I throw up so I can walk in. We had the turnaround point at like 23 minutes. And I got back at like 48. And I didn't throw up. I mean, I was like, but by that time, I was mentally just like, I was done. Now, sitting here today, I never got it. I was so, like I said, I was so in my head about being back by 50 minutes. If I would have hit the turnaround at 27, I would have been freaking out. I'm wondering if I would have just gone out and started walking and jog, if I could have clipped a couple more. But once I hit the 100K, it was like my why kind of dissipated. I didn't think I had a chance in hell at 24 to do 100. I just didn't, that I couldn't fathom that. And so the difference between me at 15 and 17, there just wasn't, the why wasn't enough. And so I did give it everything I had, and I went to the ends, and my community took me 2 to 3 yards further than I thought I could go. But just the experience as a whole, like the community aspect of it, the brotherhood, the people pushing you, I just never experienced anything like it. Like you said, like you're gonna like this better in full mo. They both they both were fun in their own minds, but there is something about Prairie where it's just like you give every part of you, and then you give more, and you do things that you just never thought were possible.
The mile to 100K is almost a couch to 100K from your summer. It's pretty unbelievable.
Well, it was. I think the coolest thing for me, and we'll probably talk about contextual. Actually, I'll save that for later. But there was me and Hadley had a really unique conversation on the way home that was really special. But the race itself was just incredible.
You mentioned something that has come to the forefront of my mind post Prairie. I was listening to Jordan Goldstein. He's another one of the tribal training guys, doctor, and a brilliant individual who again spends a lot of time thinking about this. And he talks similarly to you. He did 80 something I think last year, and then this year came out and ended up. I feel like maybe 100K or a little more. So didn't do as well. It definitely experienced the same thing, but I think one of the things that's unique, it's like this razor's edge with Prairie is if you're going in there with a huge goal, you're going to have to guard against losing your heart. And he talks about it. He had brought, so his wife and kids had never watched him run. They're from Canada. They live in Illinois now. And they'd never watched him run a race. Well, he did what a lot of people do. He got the RV down there. They stayed with him. And when he hit 50, the kids were there with these shirts they made with dad, and they gave him these hugs, and it was over. Mm-hmm. Like, he did a couple more, but that was the moment.
That was the crowning moment.
Let's talk about
that one more yard concept.
Go one more.
Go one more is so spot on. It's just like one more yard. I just kept saying to myself when Hadley and Kayla's like, one more yard. It just resonates. Like you can do one more yard.
What I found watching the data, another observation is that those milestones are a blessing and a curse. Mm-hmm. And if you look at the data, you'll see a very small thing on 50K, a little small bump. Then you see 50 miles. And I'm talking about the number of people dropped. So we have a graph that shows the number of people that dropped each yard, right? And like clockwork, you can see it. 50K, a small bump, 50 miles, 100K, even 75 miles. And there's a different, some people are going for PRs or things, 100 miles. Like it's crazy. And then, and then they drop off hugely after those milestones. So the beautiful thing is I think many people push themselves way further than they think they go for that goal. But then also on the other side, those goals are also a nice out for people to have a clean cut. It's clear that if everyone was truly going to their limit, there would be no pattern identifiable. But the reality is, I would say between 50K, 50 miles, 100K, and 100 miles, you probably had 3/4 of the field drop on one of those 4 milestones.
What I did notice though is you would it was 12 and 13.
Maybe half.
You would see it was either that or the one after.
Correct.
So I hit 50 miles, I'll do one more.
Yes.
Or I'll hit 100K, I'll do
true.
66.
That's true.
You would see.
I think
to
not
clarify
having
my
a
statement,
goal,
it was probably more like half dropped on one of those 4 to 6 yards.
I think not having a goal did help me. Like if I would have set one of those, it just was like. But on the flip side, I didn't have anything carrying me either once I got to a certain point. But I just wanted to soak it all in. I was just blown away with when you came around and you saw those tents. And I remember when I came to help during setup for a little bit and just seeing how empty it was and all the people and everyone just so cool. So there's just this unbelievable community of people you know and don't know and you get to know that just and just having the different people show up to support. Tim Moorhead came out with his girls, and I mean, just people there to encourage you and help you. And Angel and my whole family was there for a period of time. There's really nothing like it, and it's putting yourself through that. Again, doing hard things and having that community that cares enough to help you dig into that last bit out of you to where, because there is a sense of, you don't do it for pride, but there's a sense of accomplishment.
So a few people asked me this question. I don't know that we've ever asked you what part of K still going at 50 miles helped you continue to go. Were you going to get beat by your niece is what everybody wants to know. How big of a factor was that for you to keep going?
Well, yeah, so that was maybe the only thing I said that there was a point in time I wanted to run with Kay, and when she got to 10 and was struggling, like I wanted to see her get as far as she could. Like, yeah, we're joking around like it'd be nice to be able to beat her, but let's all be honest, like the times of us outbeating Kay and running are short and far between. Like she's going into places that we're never gonna, and I told her that. I was like, listen, this might be the one and only time that I'm going to ever be able to compete with you ever again. So let me have this year, Kay, damn it. But no, I was encouraged. When she started struggling, I wanted to help. I wasn't like, oh, I want to beat her. And
tell me about that real quick, because I saw some of the more acute things when she would come in, like daddy, my calves, or we have issues with blisters. But like, I didn't hear much about those moments on the trail.
Her friends started dropping, and she was on the pain train out there, and kind of similar to how Hadley and Caleb picked me up. It was like, hey, would it help? Do you want to run together? Right? Like I wanted to keep her mind going, and I think she had a friend that had run some and taken some off and was kind of back out there and so forth, but. I just noticed that she was starting to kind of get further and further back there because she was running the first several laps up there pretty quick. So when I just saw that and I was like, hey, let's do this together, because I know she wanted to get to 10 was her goal. And then she kept going and I'm like, all right. And then she kept going and I'm like, wow. But once we got to lap 13, I was in so much of a pain cave, like selfishly or not, I was like just trying to keep myself like going at that point. My ability to stop and start when someone else was, I was completely focused on myself. So my apologies, Kay, on lap 13. I think I did my own thing, and that was purely out of survival.
I think Noah got her out on 13 too. Like he was like, can I go do one? And
oh, did he go out?
He was out there.
She wasn't planning on it. She was going to do what they did last year and not sit in the chair. But Corey, like to make the whole theater of it, put her in the headlamp and everything else, and then she just didn't turn around. And so she went. Yeah, she went.
She finished 13, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but she didn't go back out after that.
No, she comes in and she goes, Dad, I'm never running more than 54 miles. That is the worst out and back ever.
So let's talk about this. So great transition. So Kay, who had run how much last year?
29.
7. And she probably runs.
She's 11.
She's 11 years old.
11-year-old.
And she maybe runs, 15 to 20 miles a week? Not even.
12 to 15.
12 to 15 miles a week. Yeah. She ran 7 yards last year. Yeah. And she runs 13 yards, almost doubles it, 54 miles into the dark. I think arguably, I mean, there was obviously a few other storylines, but might have been the storyline of the race. Like, talk that through. You're trying to. I'd be interested from your perspective before we get into what you've talked with her about and how that went for her. You just kind of you're trying to put on this race, and your daughter is putting on a complete show. Like, talk about managing your emotions there. That had to be difficult.
Yeah, I mean, it was just relying on the team we have. That's what I think goes unnoticed with her. Is that we're going to say the community word 100 times. This is, I mean, we are her blood family, but this is her expanded family. And so there's a picture that Angie sent. So at one point, Dad, I have blisters. And I'm like, okay, we got to pop them, whatever. Because I have to think at this point, I have to think tactically. I can't, I know talking about guarding against your heart, I know that if I start to be dad and caring and whatever, knowing her personality, there's a potential she'll latch on to that and not go where she wants to go, right? Because she put the 10 out there herself. So it's like, okay, and Angie, you have a lot of experience here. Angie, can you crew K? And there is this picture where Angie's on the ground and Kennedy and Bella have food ready for her. And Gramps, so she's got 5 people around, and she's sitting in the chair and they're crewing her, and then I sent her over to Mike on the PT table and he put KT tape on her calves because her calves were hurting. But I had a friend reach out to me and tell me that his daughter wanted to go, as far as Kay's gone or further next year. And I welcome it. That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
But one thing that Kay has that nobody else has is she has an endless amount of friends. Like you said, when her friends were dropping, one of the things that's interesting with this particular race versus the backyard ultra as a bigger, you're not allowed to have pacers. Well, that's easier said than done. When your LAS and your loop is the backyard of your house, nobody else can run on the course. Fortunately or unfortunately, I think it's fortunately, this is a public trail. They will not close it, ever. I mean,
there are horses out there.
Yeah, and we're 98% of the traffic, 99% of the traffic that day, and they still won't let us park in certain parking lots because they don't want us to overwhelm the parking lots for the regular visitors. So our people are going to be able to run on that trail, and it's turned out to be a really cool thing. Mm-hmm. Kay had a friend run 7 yards, but not at once. He'd run one and then take two off and then run another one, et cetera, et cetera. So that's nice knowing that her sister's friends, Ricardo's daughters, obviously Fernanda and Bella are there. They're helping out. I am able to feel fairly confident that they will be able to handle 85%. And if it gets really serious and she needs some advice or we need to talk about something, then she'll come to me. But she knows she is definitely not the kid. And you kind of alluded to this. It's like, Dad, I need this. Dad, I need this. Dad, I need this. Help me. She's going to try to solve what she can. But for her and the superpower she has out there is that, just imagine you were going out there and you had your 15 best friends lined up to run with you one in a row.
I mean, we talk about the 4 that went to 100 and we'll get there, but just like you said, with the one reaching out and saying his daughter wants to go, I mean, the number of kids that she's going to inspire already who just through word of mouth, but then once the documentary comes out, so there was a documentary, let's talk about that for a second. Yeah. Kuhn was out filming and what's your guys' timeline to release that?
We're probably going to be saying January-ish. He's doing the, kudos, thank you, IMG. He's doing the interviews there on the 29th.
Is he doing it at the Indy?
At the Indy office?
Yeah.
So I think the 29th and 30th he's interviewing. So it'll probably be beginning of the year. That he gets that out. So we'll probably do a screening again. We might need somewhere bigger because obviously Annex was standing room and then some only last time. But we'll do it early January. And then that, of course, is the first opportunity to sign up for the race when we launch that. Yeah. But
how many kids participated, I'll say, under age 18?
Well, and I was going to talk to, this all started with Kaylin and Hazel 2 years ago. And then...
I met Hazel's dad out there.
What's that?
Hazel's dad. I got to know him.
And
Joel.
Shout out to Joel. I mean, he's the one that not only does our website, but that also made the graphic that was sent out to a lot of you that showcased how the race was structured in terms of the logistical organization of home base. But yeah, it was Hazel and Kay that first year. And then the next year they came out and did it again. Well, then Hazel's sisters decided that she has twin sisters. They did, and a younger brother, but the girls decided they wanted to run. Well, then Joel's brother John, who's got a daughter, Layton, well, she decided she wanted to run. So officially we had 5 kids sign up this year. But on top of that, we had probably at least another half dozen, if not 10, do at least a yard or more. And I think, like you said at mile
just randomly, not
randomly, yeah. But like you said, when you saw Kay on lap 10, I think she takes a lot of pride in. She's got friends out there that have never run more than 3 miles, and so she's like, oh, I'm going to take Wyatt to 16 and Graham to 29 and Noelle to 4 and Fernanda to 8 or whatever. And so there's purpose in that too. So I think next year I would assume we've been talking about how to formalize this, but we'll probably have at least a dozen kids like actually sign up next year. Age limit will probably be, we'll take it case by case. Like if it's, I'm not going to let a random 10-year-old kid whose parent isn't in the race as well. Like there's some, there's some.
I was going to say, like,
liability.
You don't want half this field to be kids coming out running 3 and 4 laps. I would assume that's not the goal of the.
So, couple things, but just for a second, there are some parents out there that are like, who would let their daughter run 54 miles? Like, speak to that a little bit. Obviously, this is a very controlled thing. Kay's limitations or capabilities. Was there any point where you were concerned about the distance that she was running and talk that through?
I would have gotten concerned. So, like, with her and her alone, right? Because one of the big things that was talked about, some of the neighbors that lived on 234th Street were setting things out for the runners. Like, they're all in. Like, two of the people that live right there, they're not going to listen to this podcast, so I can say it. You remember the house we started, Mom's 50?
Yeah.
On 50, and I wrote, start.
Yeah.
It's that house.
Yeah.
And they actually picked up all of our LED lights for us. They took their gator out and, like, as a favor, picked them up for us. And I went and talked to them. She's running it next year.
Wow.
Which is crazy full circle moment. But most of the people wouldn't take those drinks because they thought that was unassisted aid. And I was very, straightforward about do not take anything that is not from your camp. Well, when Kay went out on lap 13, you knew that. I mean, you may have been more prepared, but it was windy out there and kind of a cutting wind on that out and back if you weren't warm. Kay weighs 67 pounds. And so, like, I went out and brought her a jacket. I rode my one wheel out there. And, of course, I'm self-conscious because, whenever I'm running by the field, I just got to think in their heads, they're like, what is TJ doing? Stop being a jackass. Because I had to do it one other time on the day loop because one of the kids actually got lost out on the loop. And his mom, it was Crystal's son, Wyatt. It wasn't a huge deal, but, like, I wanted to go out and find him and walk him in. And so I'd done that with Kay. So in terms of being concerned about her, had she done more along the night, I would have wanted to ensure that somebody like an Angie was paying attention to the fact that she was wearing layers appropriately, but she is, again, grown up around this. So, like, she had her fueling dialed, and it was hers. Like, she was getting honey sticks from, like, we'll talk about a great clean fuel. She was eating gummy nerds. She was drinking, water. She was staying on top of that stuff. And the crazy thing was, man, you ran with her. Every time somebody was around her on that trail, go Kay, you're amazing. Are you kidding me? I can't believe this. So the people out there didn't seem to be any judgment. I'm sure there were a couple people that were keeping it to themselves, but there are enough people that know, and there are enough people that have seen her run enough to be able to let me know if it looks like something is serious. And by the way, I think I often wonder, and this is a much broader conversation, so I don't want to get too far off topic. I often wonder why there is that perspective. You when we were growing up, you would hear about all the things that could stunt your growth. Oh, if you start lifting weights too early or whatever, if you do this too early, and who knows? I don't know, but I will tell you this. This is what kind of changed. This is what sat in my mind. She runs cross country right now, and she's good. She's competitive. And she had 2 cross country meets the following week. So this would have been on a Saturday. She had cross country on Tuesday and Thursday. And, like any parent, you want your kid to do good. She's got a team that's somewhat reliant on her. And I stopped myself and I said, when she's 35, is she going to look back on having a bad 6th grade cross country meet? Or is she going to look back on all of the fun she got to have with her friends and running 54 miles at Prairie? And for me, that was more important than for all of you concerned parents, by the way, a week and a half after Prairie, she broke her in race PR by 30 seconds in a 3K.
I think the important thing about Kay is it's all self-propelled.
Oh,
you
sure.
weren't saying, keep going. This wasn't one of those, parents, a lot of us, one of them at times, like, you're always pushing your kid, like, this girl was pulling people with her. Like you said, she had self-motivation to take others with her. We're going to be traveling around the country and 15, 20 years watching her do some crazy stuff because she has that desire and she's got that pull. And this wasn't a push. This was definitely a pull from Kay. And I saw it firsthand, especially the last 3 or 4 laps.
Yeah, she's obviously very experienced. I mean, she had a 700-day plus run streak. She is, she knows her own limitations. And
so we're going to the night loop. Let's talk about the night loop a little bit. That loop, I don't know what it is, but the way back feels like 4 times longer than the way there. The 2 miles out, and then you hit the turnaround, and it's like it's eternity to get back to camp. I don't know why that is psychologically.
you know what else I would add to that? And this has obviously been 12 months since I ran it. I felt like the undulation on the way back was like double. Like when you came out, it felt like it was uphill both ways. Like you came out, and you're like, oh yeah, this is kind of uphill, you know, and then you come back and you're like, this is still uphill going back until the dive into the thing.
Yeah. One of the unique things that happened this year, and we're going to embrace it. You know, we again, and we'll do this next year. We're doing merchandise on site for people to kind of commemorate their accomplishments. Yeah. And 2 of the designs were the course. One is the just one more loop, and that's the day course. And then Corey had come up with the this isn't a race, it's a reckoning saying. And I'm like, well, I want to make sure we commemorate the night loop somewhere. So I'm like, oh, let's just put it as a line through the middle. Well, then people started calling the night loop the reckoning. Like it wasn't intentional.
That's awesome.
And I heard Sarah Farney say it. And it's like, yeah, it is, right? Like it is the reckoning for sure.
Speaking of Sarah Farney, let's go from Kaylin to the other females in the race. Sarah Farney, Angie Kumar, Gracie Bell, and Tammy
Morante. Yeah.
Morante. Okay. So they all hit 100 miles.
They did.
And let's talk for a second just about all the 100 runners, but I want to hit on them. So previously, Gracie had set the,
Yes. Gracie and Angela had both been in the
80s. In different years.
Yeah, I think it's either Cam did 83 and Gracie did 78, but I know Angela's been in the 80s for sure. So It was close. It was something like that.
Yeah, so they're doing this. And let's talk just in general for a night loop, because up to about the 100K mark, it's pretty popping.
Yeah.
Right? People are there. Every time the loop goes off, people are cheering. About 1 a.m., it starts to really thin out.
Yeah.
Right? And like, you're starting to be out there and you're asking yourself, why am I out here? The extrinsic motivation goes off a cliff, I think, around 1 a.m. And so, and I'm going to talk about this more for the guys that went into the females that went into the day, but this is throughout the night. And I know many of them were in excruciating pain. I mean, you could see people finishing and like could barely walk, like, you know, wobbling. And so the mental toughness, but let's just talk a little bit about the storyline of those 4 ladies that made it to 100 miles.
Well, yeah. So last year, Sarah and Tammy stopped, I think, at 66. And I talked to Tammy a little bit about the story. I think they were going to go 50. Like that was kind of their plan, was to get to 50. And then I can't remember what pushed them a little bit further, but they ended up, again, going and getting to 66. And Angela last year had to stop in the 80s, but she looked fantastic. And I know when she did have to stop, she wasn't happy about it, but like she needed to approach it under different guise this year. Gracie really, when she showed up 2 years ago, she really became part of the family kind of instantly. And I'd run into her a couple other places. Corey talked to her quite a bit. And so she felt like part of the crew, and she had a baby. But she had started to do really hard things. She'd started to do straight hundreds and know that she had said that Prairie is her favorite race. That's her favorite time of year. And knowing that she wanted to come back here and do something special. Well, I think she knew that it was going to have to be a big number. And watching those other 3, so those other 3 ladies are all part of Fisher's Run Club. They're all in close proximity. And they spent all year planning this. Like you said, they had a real strategy with Run and Walk. They had been out there multiple times. And like, we walk from this post to this post, and we walk from this part of the parking lot. So that was like dialed. And they have very it was interesting to listen to the dynamics in their tents with their crews and or husbands. So, they all have very different personalities, at least outwardly. And they kind of complement each other in different ways, but they've been around each other so often that they know when they have to cut bait if somebody's dragging them down too much. And so they've gone to dinners and discussed it. They've been out to, I mean, they've really put a lot of time and effort. And I think, I don't think there was any way in hell with that kind of like tight knit scenario. Tammy probably faced the most adversity early because she got some bad blisters and she's never gotten blisters. She had done the 66 and she'd gone out to grind.
Bleeding through her shoe, if I recall.
Yeah.
Like we're not talking about like, ouch, this hurts. We're talking about blood blisters,
Yes.
some of which had popped. Like it was.
Well, that was interesting because she had done 66 at Prairie, then she went to grind and she wanted to do 100. And she had problems with her ankles and she couldn't. I think she got to the 80s herself there at grind. And so she went out to the Prairie to run on uneven terrain so their ankles were strong. And she ran it on the Prairie for like 3 months or 2 months or whatever. She'd go out there every day and she had some setbacks with some other injuries and whatever. Meanwhile, I'm watching Angela and Sarah put in these huge days, 20 milers. Angela was like known for breaking hers up and doing 20 miles in 3 different sessions in a single day. And then Sarah's got all of the people she coaches on Soulmates, plus she's doing her own stuff. But so Tammy comes out and she's like, I got it figured out. I've got all my injuries figured out. My ankles are strong. And she gets that blood blister. And that's when Angie comes up to her. Somebody's like, I think it was her husband came up and he's like, hey, she's got blood. What do I do? I'm like, talk to Angie. And Angie's like,
Frazier.
Yeah. And Angie's like, you have to pop it. And she's like, no, I don't want to. And she was asking people too out on the course what she should do and got 50-50. So she ended up popping it. And if you've popped a blister, like that next 4 miles is going to hurt like hell. And she came back and was just furious. And then eventually it subsided and it was the right thing to do for her to finish that. But Angela, as you both know, especially she's the most positive person in the world. Every time she comes in on a loop, she's smiling, high-fiving. Well, I think she said it was after 22, something happened to her Achilles. And for the first time in 2 years, she was like, this hurts. Like, I'm done. I don't want to be like this. I feel like it's going to tear off. And
She got it done.
she got it done.
I just want to real comment, fun fact. I feel like these random data fun facts, but one of the things that one of the audience members had asked for at one point during the race is like, hey, could we tell like males versus females? And so I added this statistic in there, had a little fun with that, the percentage of males and females that were still left, right? Because we were tracking overall like how many are left or whatever. Up until that 100-mile point, the number of females remaining from a proportion to males was right in the ballpark, which to me is incredible. I mean, you talk about all this, like, right, males and female sports and different levels or whatever. The females, the grit that was showed by the females to proportionately hang in there with the males was unbelievable. It was something a lot of people were talking about up to that 100-mile point.
There was some that really pushed themselves. Christy pushed herself as far as she could go. She could barely stand up when she came in.
Yeah.
I mean, they're, and she'll be featured in the documentary as well. So you'll get to hear more about the stories of those ladies. There were some really, I think next year, we're going to have some really ridiculous performances.
So you mentioned Christy, who had an unbelievable performance as well. I think some of the things that get overlooked in this sort of a thing, and even in this kind of dialogue, is people are out there setting PRs. Which is like huge. They may not be, hitting the 100 miles or winning the race or whatever, but Christy goes out and she'd run 15 yards, I think was that right? 15, 100K previously, and then goes out and runs 18 yards.
Something like that.
And again, went completely to the well, which I think for me, as I kind of mentioned, you've got these milestones that are a blessing and a curse. The ultimate goal for this race, if you're really, is how much can you get out of yourself?
Yeah.
How far can you go? Can you go to the well to where you go out and you're literally giving everything you possibly can and you just can't get back in time? Physically, you are you have all the motivation in the world and you physically can't. And that's what Christy did.
Oh yeah.
I mean, Christy, as I understand it, could not just like physically, she still went and just couldn't.
Lindsay Dodick did the same thing.
Yeah,
like she got trapped out on the course after like 13 or 14. It's kind of that same mentality as like she tried to finish the loop, she just couldn't physically get back in time.
Yeah, there was another one that absolutely did that. She, I think she came in like 30 minutes past the cutoff time, which to me just shows you how much. I mean, she left 0. Her and Christy left 0 out on the course. So yeah. I just want to give a shout out there. Incredible.
I had a friend, Farah Chowdhury, that came in, and she had one of those. It was the best. She was the fastest exchange at the line ever. She got in with like 3 seconds left, grabbed the water bottle, and then went back out. And she didn't make it back in time, but she ended up just going out off the clock and doing another yard because she just didn't have the speed to get back in time, and that was really cool to see.
In a way, those are the heroes of the race, honestly. But let's talk about Gracie for a second. She won the female, and she was interesting just because she came in at like 38 minutes.
38 to 43 almost every time.
Clockwork. I mean, she was running, what is that, 8.5 to 9 minute miles, just her, and there was someone else that was with her for quite a while.
Yeah, and she dropped right around 100K. I can't remember her name.
Yeah, but they both...
Gracie is and that's what's great about this, is that everybody thinks they have the answer. And that speaks to the uniqueness of the human body. Everybody is like, oh, you shouldn't run fast because these people don't, or this person doesn't. And frankly, for Gracie, it works. And, after the fact, she commented, she's like, I had something left, I think, but my goal was to win. And I know that, like, and she had a brilliant move. I talked earlier, and I've mentioned, I think, to both of you. We talked about the functionality of the Radana, and normally those are ice bandanas. Well, Gracie struggles with her body temperature, and that's why she ended up dropping a couple years ago, because she couldn't stay warm. And she put hot hands in her Radana and tucked it in. It was like a heater.
Wow.
And that's what kept her warm this year.
That's brilliant.
Oh, she was the best. At the starting line, she was coming up with all these ideas because she's kind of delirious. She goes, at night, whenever anybody drops, we need to put like, this is Harry Potter or something, we need to put a giant thing in the sky with their picture. That'd be so rad.
We were talking about that they should shoot off like in when the people die when they're
that was what it was.
We were talking about that.
Oh, the
Mockingbird
Jay
killed. What's that called? What's that show?
Yes, I know the Mockingjay.
Hunter Games.
Hunger Games.
Hunger Games.
Yes, that's what she was saying.
When somebody dies in Hunger Games, they literally shoot a cannon off. That we were laughing about that earlier in the day. We're like, because we were like, who's gone out? Is anyone ever dropping?
Speaking of, is anyone ever dropping? So you get to this next level. Congratulations to everybody, that on the female side, it was just, and Tammy even pushed herself like a few more yards to where we were like, I mean, this is unbelievable. She continued to go a few more, but I want to fast forward a little bit into the race because we're at about 120 miles. We're into the second day. It's like 10 a.m. There's nobody really there. There's no milestones in sight. It's not like someone's about to hit 150 or something else. And there's 10 guys, give or take, that are still going out. And I'm just sitting there thinking, if I was them, what would my why be? No one's here cheering you on. You've already hit the big milestones. You likely aren't going to win it because Jeff, Walker has proven he can go a very, very long way, and they were still going out. And that just the inspiration of those guys. Maybe we can hit on a couple of them that gave Jeff, an opportunity to go really deep. I was just blown away by the will, the motivation, and the grit to go out for almost no reason other than to push your limits.
Yeah, there are a couple people to call out in regards to like the big stuff. I mean, you're right. A lot of these other like PRs and things get overshadowed. There were plenty of people that went from like low double digits to 60 or 50 miles. Uriah Bisson's the one that sticks out. He went from 10K to 100 miles. Yeah, he was a big one, and he said, community was his big thing. and there were a lot of people when he hit that mile. So there was a lot of tears because he had run into some different guys out there on the trail when he wanted to quit that wouldn't let him quit. Jeff was one of them. Cam was one of them. It was crazy to see an accomplishment like that. That speaks to, how community is going to take you farther than anything else if you can find the right people to pull you on. Jake Hostetler's another one. Jake is and I tell him this all the time. Watching him do 50 miles last year and stop, I just railed on him for a year. Like, dude, and I'm like, you quit, you knew you had it, and he's like, 100 it is next year. And this year, same thing. He did 100, and it was like, cool, no problem. I think one of the things that helps him, though, from that community perspective, is he's a very vocal person. And he said he ran into the ladies at one point on the out and back, and they were like, nobody would care if we stopped at 75. Like, that's a great number. It's PR. And Jake was like, we didn't come here to do that. Like, let's go. So he vocalizes and gets to help uplift people. And I think he's one that next year could go a very, very long way and could be really, really good at this long term. I know he battles with wanting to go faster and do some of those shorter things, but he's really, really good at that. And then when it comes to the other guys left out there, I know Matt Sandlin pushed pretty far. Bob Rodebush wanted to hit a PR, so that's why he stayed out there. I think he got 137 miles, give or take. The two that got Jeff to the end, the assists, was Abe Rickenberg and Angel Lozada, and DeSoto. And Angel, they both, like, I think Abe's PR prior to that was 120 miles in that realm, and he ended up going 154. And in talking with him, he's a very experienced ultra runner. He's done Leadville. He's done a lot of those big races. But, he said for him, he's like, man, this kind of speaks to your point. He's like, it got to a point with me where I couldn't win the mental battle anymore because I had gone so far over where I thought, and that's the blessing and the curse of the goals. He's like, I couldn't tell myself anymore. When you're 34 miles past your PR, it's just like, there's only so many times, there's only so many mental tricks you can use to keep yourself going. Yeah. I don't know what level of hell Angel went to because he'd come back and he'd be in just tears and he had multiple nosebleeds. And he went all the way down. I remember him coming back at 150 and hugging me like the world was going to end. Like, I thought, like, this is 100% the bow on the box. Like, he's done. And then he goes out for the next yard. And Abe, at this point in time, Abe and Jeff are hanging out. And it's about 55 minutes. Abe is crewing himself because he was with Bob under the tent. Jeff is in his tent like he always does, right? Get to business, go, whatever. And Abe's like, hey, man, we're talking because nobody's with him. He's like, hey, I don't think Angel's making it back. He's like, Jeff and I were together. We hit the turnaround. We came back and we saw him at like 31 minutes, but like he still had 3/10 to go to get there. And so like he might, but like I doubt it. And John had gone out on the one wheel. John got 16 hours of footage, by the way, if that tells you how hard he was working. John went out on the one wheel to film all the guys on that yard. And all of a sudden, with like 2 minutes left, we see the two headlamps up on 234th, and I'm like, dude, I think it's them. And Abe's like, no way. And he goes, Jeff, get out of your tent. You have to see this. And at this time, there's like 25 of us that are still there. And he is hammering down 234th and down the turn, and he finished with 27 seconds left.
Wow.
And then got on the line and went again. And of course, he and Abe ended up turning around and coming back, and Jeff finished it. To finish it at 38 yards.
It was cool to see some of the camaraderie. I know a couple of times when I was there, Jeff, I think Abe and Angel were walking, and then Jeff came up to him and was like, let's go. Yep. He would get him running. Just some really, really cool stories. You mentioned Uriah. He came in, man. I could feel his emotion. It was the exact same thing I went through last year. Like, you just are so emotionally exhausted. The rawness and the vulnerability of him hitting that 100 miles, you could tell how meaningful that was to him. Like, I just get chills thinking about it. That was such a cool story. And then I can't not mention the guy who we thought was done after 2 yards. I'm trying to think of the name. And
Was it John Waggle?
Yes,
Yeah.
I think it was. So
Yeah.
I had an individual approach me after the second yard and said, "Hey, I'm done." And I said, "Okay." And I went and marked him as done. And it was kind of weird because he looked like he was in really good shape and could go a long way. But like he said, he was done. TJ had announced, "Hey, when you're done, go talk to Todd and let him know, and he'll update, the data." And he did that. And then TJ, you came to me after 3 yards and were like, something's wrong. He went out again. I was like, well, maybe he was just running for a buddy. Maybe he's injured, whatever. And so I went over to him again and I said, "Hey, are you done?" He's like, "Yeah, I'm done. You weren't there when I was, I got done. I thought maybe you were walking around, but yeah, I'm done." So I went and told TJ, "Yeah, dude, I just went and talked to him. He said he's done." And then he went out for like 2 or 3 more yards. And we were like, hold on. Well, long story short, he thought that he needed every time he finished. I had this guy on the spreadsheet marked as done after 2 yards, and like he was the one guy that had dropped. He ended up going 120 miles, maybe 120. And so finally, after 26 yards, he told me officially he came in, or 27. I don't know exactly what it was. Hopefully, I'm getting right that he was done. But that was that was a funny story as well. Well, one thing we want to wrap this up, but. Talk a little bit on the toll that this takes on you physically to put this on. So we've talked about your intentionality of the race, trying to prepare for it, but you are up most of Thursday night going into Friday, a lot of it. Certainly Friday night going into Saturday morning. Maybe you're getting a few hours of sleep. You're up all Saturday night, obviously. Maybe I think you got a little bit of rest Saturday morning, but talk about that. And I know the aftermath was really rough to recover from.
Yeah, hopefully we can figure this out. There's some things I'm looking at next year, but it is tough. I think I got 4 hours of sleep between Friday morning and 10 p.m. Sunday night. And then, of course, the most daunting thing of Prairie is when everybody leaves, we can't leave the campsite set up. So we've got to break down after being up for 38 hours plus the time before that. And that gets overwhelming. Luckily, we have the trailer on site. We could throw some of that stuff in, and we'll come back in the morning and get the remainder of it. But for me, and I'm finding this out for people that stand a lot in one spot. Like I was doing a lot of standing. I was in really bad shape for like 3 or 4 days afterwards. But hopefully, like way worse shape than I've been in after running 50 milers and 75 milers. For whatever reason, that much standing and that little bit of sleep with my conditions and stuff destroys me. So I think we'll figure something out going forward in the years coming. Of course, I didn't want to be public about that with everything everybody else put themselves through. Seeing like some of those epic performances, but again, like I'm going to do the same thing, even if it's, even if it requires Corey having to clean up most of the campground on Monday while I sat inside the RV and rolled up sleeping bags and air mattresses because I couldn't stand, it's worth it. So, we'll figure it out.
Well, speaking of the years to come, I know we've talked about you, Trent and I both try and talk you into feeling like you should be making more than you are, but you and Corey obviously are obsessed with the runner experience and struggle to make this any sort of, to reward yourself, I guess, at all for all the effort that you put in from a monetary perspective. But it sounds like the conversations have already started about how you're going to level up next year. Any hints or teasers you want to drop on what may be coming in future years?
Next year, I think, we will be doing some runner engagement stuff on site that is going to be unique, that you've probably never seen before in a race, just as it relates to tracking and things like that. I think the other thing we're going to do next year is we're going to try to solve for the problem of the 100K to 100-mile gap. Like, what can we do in there to give you something to go for, to get you closer to that goal, if in fact, because we do see such a struggle for people to get there. So those things, we're going to continue to, get better with our merchandise. We've got some new partners there, in terms of making sure we're always improving the quality and the designs and things like that. We want to bring those things forward that will last you forever and can commemorate what you've done. So all of those things are always in the works, trying to make sure we've got the right sponsors. We have a couple potential trail series we'll be part of next year. And then the other goal is to level up the race to a silver ticket race in the grander scope of Big's backyard for 2027. So, and to have number one, the largest field next year again, but not putting it just to have the largest field. Like we don't want to just be the biggest.
What does that mean? We had 150 start. I know you had maybe
I'd like to have 200 start.
200, yeah.
Maybe something like that, maybe 190, 200 start. But and then
it's not crowded out there. I mean, I know the campsite's crowded, but it's not.
It's really the parking, right? Like
the trail can handle it.
Yeah. The only part of it is that like at 3:00 on Saturday again, like,
Well, think about what we just did. I mean, when we did Ragnar, the trail, the parking, I mean, they took us 3 miles down the road and parked us in a field. Like, there's got to be some way to figure that out.
We'll definitely figure it out. We have a lot more spectators than a Ragnar does, but like, so those are some of the things. And I want to continue to grow the percentage of 100-mile finishers and set some, Jeff and I communicated afterwards, and he's like, "Hey, let's take this 3 or 4 days next year." So,
well, it's an unbelievable race. It's in just a short period of time. It's become a staple. I think in Hamilton County. I know I was at Orange Theory the day before, and people were talking about it. You going out to Prairie. I mean, you hear about it everywhere. So unbelievable race that you guys have architected there, and then all of the help, and then all the performances, all the runners. It was pretty insane.
Well, I will say this to close it out. Why don't you close it out with the after you finish the race and your story on the ride home?
Yeah. So I was gonna say, from doing it for yourself is one thing, but I don't think you ever realize maybe the impact you could have on those around you of doing something like that. So I'm driving home. It's 12:30 in the morning, and my daughter, prior to today, the furthest she's ever run was 3.3 miles, a little 4th of July thing, had just run 6. She did 4 yards. And she was like, the sense of accomplishment and the lens that she now saw the world through completely shifted. It was like, oh my gosh. She's like, Dad, I want to do this next year. Like she's like, I did 16 miles. And just to have that conversation about putting herself in a different environment and going through life and putting yourselves in different environments will completely allow you to blow through things that you never thought you could do before. And we talk about this a lot. Before we became runners, we'd look at someone and be like, they ran a 5K, like that's ridiculous. And you keep taking yourself. And so for her to get shifted into an environment to where 16 miles was kind of like part of the team, it was worth every single ounce of energy and pain and recovery to be able to take my kids and for them to actually see that. Isaiah played there for 18 hours. I'm pretty sure he stole a bike, although he returned it. I come through one of the loops and he was like, "Hey Dad, I found this bike just right here." And I started riding it. I'm like, "Please take it back." But our kids were there. Your kids get to see it. And I think we get so comfortable in our own environments and the people around us, and we normalize the things, and being able to take yourself out of that and then also take your family with you. It was an unbelievable conversation and a ride home, which has still impacted her to today and what she thinks is now possible.
Like Zach Holm always said in the film, imagine what it's like as a kid getting to see your parent run 50 miles, run 100 miles, and that sums it all up right there. So.
I will tell you guys, as I was reluctant to do both of these races, if you live in Indiana, if you are in the Indianapolis area, even if you're not, I would highly recommend them. They're incredible experience. It's not just because TJ is my brother. We've done a lot of races, and you will be really excited, and it'll be an incredible experience. So thank you all for tuning in, and we look forward to seeing you next time.